Hello and welcome to another episode of Bare Bones Wargaming, a show with no bells, no whistles, no frills, just a man, a camera, and his game. Happy New Year to you all from Bare Bones Wargaming headquarters here in the heart of the River City. Now, I was thinking about this because I guess it really didn't register on me until recently that, holy smoke, a whole decade's gone by, but it has. And it's been quite the decade. I was thinking about this the other day. My wife and I were talking about it, and my wife was like, 10 years ago, January the 1st, 2010, we didn't even know each other. And I'm like, whoa, that kind of blew my mind. So then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I've done my best and worst for the year, the last couple of years, but I decided I wanted to go ahead and do, for my latest video here before Creed comes out, still scheduled for January 17th, I decided to go ahead and do my top 10 games from the last decade. Now keep in mind these are my top 10. So some games that came out over the last 10 years. For example, the coin system. I tried Cuba Libre, and when I was done, I felt like Harry Shapiro in Stalag 17 when they were asking him about the Red Cross was like in asking how things are, and he's like, I like it here. So there are games that may have been very popular that excuse me, you will not see because I don't own them or I did not enjoy them. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is my personal top 10 from the last 10 years. Okay, and I'll go ahead and obviously give a little spiel about each one and why it's where it is. Alright, to start though, I thought what I should do is, because I have a rather lengthy list, when I went through all my games on Board Game Geek by year, I discovered I had 215 war games that fell between the decade of 2010 through the end of, the end of 2019, which is actually 1/3 of my collection. So obviously my collection has exploded over the last few years. Quite a few. So what I decided to do first was I narrowed it down and I went through them all, and any ones that I had any interest in I put them down. I was like, you know what, I really enjoy this game. Then I did a 3-2-1 system, and the ones of course were the ones I was like, yes, these are awesome, these might make the list for sure. 2, 3s, I put those down to kind of be like, well, how much do I really like this game, and see how many ones I came up with 2s and 3s and whittle it down from there. So what I have here in front of you, and of course I'm going to zoom in on naturally for y'all, is my list of the 23 nominees, okay, that are here. So you can read them here. I don't really feel the need to read them all out loud. As you can see, I have a wide variety of games: Pacific Theater, Eastern Front, Napoleonic, some modern stuff even, with like Red Dragon, Green Crescent. Some of these games, of course, go back a little bit further, like Vietnam Solitaire, but the special edition has a different set of rules. Some of them are fairly recent. Some of them may not be very well known. Some of them, of course, are part of a system like Prussia 20, which to me is the culmination of the system, at least to this point in time. And then, of course, some of them, granted, are reprints like Conflict of Heroes, Storms of Steel, but the rule change is significant enough that I feel like it is a different game. So I went ahead, and even though I believe that one first came out in 2009, I included it as a nominee on the list. So there are the 23 nominees. Alright, let's get down to the turkey here. Let's talk turkey. Or as Mike Lang says for the Penguins, let's put the turkey on the table. So here we go. Starting off at number 10 of my top 10 war games of the last decade. Boom. Whoop, we gotta zoom back out, sorry. While I'm zooming in. I feel like a German fighter plane pilot, right? B-17 Flying Fortress Leader, designed by Dean Brown. Okay. Now, I know, some of you are probably already being like, dude, worst rulebook ever. Yes, I'm well aware of this. Okay. The entire free world knows about the first edition rulebook. Shoot, I'll bet they even know about it in North Korea. So, we all know about this. But the revised rules have done really well. This makes my list because I have always been interested in the air campaign. I have a few other games like Target for Today, B-17, Queen of the Skies, and Wing and a Prayer. But I really like this one because this gives the best big picture. Because in this one, you're not only figuring out your bombers and targets and things like that, but you're seeing how it affects the other theaters. You're seeing how your efforts are affected by the advancement in the Eastern Front, North Africa, things of that nature. Okay. I also like the fact that it's a solitaire game, because of course, as you all know, I'm a solitaire gamer 90% of the time, 95% of the time. Although my wife and I just played Horrified the other night, which of course is not a war game, but she enjoyed it very much. So that game definitely deserves the #1 slot on my list for best and worst. You can check that video out if you want for that. But I also like how the German stances are different. You get different leaders, different attitudes, the technology development. I think that's all really good. Okay, the campaigns. There are a few campaigns that I kind of wish, I don't know, maybe are a little more fleshed out, and then a connected campaign, which I believe does exist. I haven't really checked on updates recently, because I really haven't played this recently, because to be honest, I haven't done much with the Air War. As you guys know, I kind of go in waves, except for my old standby favorites are always Pacific Theater and Eastern Front. But B-17 Flying Fortress Leader is, to me, I'd have to say it's the best of the Leader series from the air perspective. And I own Hornet Leader, Corsair Leader, and Phantom Leaders around here somewhere too. But this one is my favorite. This one I really enjoy. You really do feel, like you're in charge of the bombers. You really do feel like you're Curtis LeMay. The man that some people may not have always liked. But hey, if that was your boy up there in the air, that's the man you would want leading him. So, B-17 Flying Fortress Leader, sorry about that. My number 10 game from the last decade. I think it's the biggest, the weightiest game, too. Number 9. Now, number 9 is a game that hasn't received a whole lot of attention here in the U.S. because it's from Japan. But I gotta tell you, I have enjoyed playing this, and this has definitely become my go-to game on the topic. I have a geek list on that on Board Game Geek if you'd like to take a look at that. And that is from Game Journal number 50. This is Frederick the Great, A Dangerous Time. To me, this is the best Frederick the Great game. And I've played quite a few Frederick the Great games. I've played Soldier Kings, of course, played the old standard one that we all know from SPI and then Avalon Hill. But this one is the best for a couple of different reasons. First of all, the chit pull. I love the chit pull system, because when the turn end comes out, that's it. And sometimes campaigning seasons were unpredictable. Sovereigns were unpredictable. And logistics were a nightmare, having all those wagons and stuff like that. So I love the chip pull system for this. Okay, it's kind of like those unexpected circumstances, those turns of fortune that Frederick exploited very well, in my humble opinion. I should do a video on that sometime. My favorite military commanders, but I also like it because Frederick can survive with this chip pull system without a whole lot of exceptional rules and chrome. The cards are a nice touch that you can use for both sides, but I like the ebb and flow of it. Now, granted, with the chit pull system, of course, there is the risk that, hey, if you get a bunch of bad chit pulls for Frederick, this could be over in a hurry. But you know what? It could have been in real life too. If the empires had gotten their act together, the Austrian Empire and the Russian Empire, and they'd have been like, hey, let's do a better job of coordinating, things could have been over. But they weren't, and Frederick did a good job of exploiting his interior lines. But to me, one of the drawbacks of the old Frederick the Great was that it was too much like chess to me. There wasn't enough element of chance, and during that time period, there was a lot of things that went on that, and the cards are reflected in this too, that it could have really changed the fortunes of war completely. The combat system has come in for a little bit of criticism. I think it's okay. I have dabbled with the idea of maybe making it simultaneous instead of defender first kind of thing, especially since the armies really had to grapple together, but I haven't actually explored that yet. But for me, this is definitely my go-to game on Frederick the Great now, and it is my number 9 game of the decade. At number 8, a little island hopping now here. D-Day at Tarawa. Can't really miss that solitaire. It's kind of like the old Sesame Street when they used to have the rocks crumble and there'd be one letter, E, It's kind of like that. Yeah, you can't miss this. This, of course, is John Butterfield design, who John Butterfield is the master, in my humble opinion, when it comes to solitaire gaming. He is the man. He is the maestro. He is Napoleon and Alexander the Great rolled into one when it comes to solo designs. Not to take away anything from any of the solitaire designers, but you look at his body of work. And even games that I don't enjoy, which, of course, you're about to find out. I'm sure you noticed from the nominees that Enemy Action Ardennes is not on this, although I have my eye on Enemy Action Kharkov. But, it's just amazing, his body of work, what he has been able to do. I really enjoy this game a lot. It's the best of the series, in my humble opinion, partly because I feel like some of the other games are a little overwhelming at times. There's really no margin for error. And I guess one could argue there was no margin for error. But the thing I like about what Tarawa does is it's very tense. There's options for short, medium, and long scenarios. You can do just the first 10 turns, the first waves, if you want. You can go longer if you want. But it also highlights, with the cards and the events, it highlights all the problems that the U.S. had, but also all the advantages they had that eventually allowed them to capture the island. Granted, after a lot of bloodshed and god-awful circumstances in combat. But I like that because it feels like it's a little more of a balance, in my opinion. More balanced than D-Day at Omaha and some of the other games are. This one I have the more deluxe version with the mounted map and stuff. It's definitely worth the investment if you enjoy this. And to me, this is a very good game if you want to feel the whole island hopping campaign. It does a nice job. And again, it's diceless. So, that in and of itself is very cool. But there's still, elements of chance. There's still friction in this, which is just brilliant in my opinion. So, number 8, without a doubt, D-Day at Tarawa. Alright, number 7. Speaking of island hopping, number 7 is, and unfortunately I can't find the magazine. I was going to show you the magazine. But this is Islands of the Damned, which is Wake Island and Peleliu. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Okay, which is interesting because it's 2 island combats from different ends of the perspective. You have the one from 1941 with Wake Island, and then, of course, the Alamo of the Pacific, as one book calls it. And then, of course, you have the other end when the U.S. was basically hopping to get the bases for the B-29s and all that kind of stuff. But Islands of the Damned, I really enjoy a lot, because it's, to me, the best game that gives a feel with minimal rules and minimal overhead. There's not a whole lot of fancy things here. There's not a whole lot of details. Both rule books are like 4 or 5 pages long. That's it. But the thing is that it gives you a great feel. It's extremely tense, and it shows you the history without getting bogged down in all kinds of stuff. The Japanese being turned away in the first wave. Now, granted, depending on how some of the counters come out, they may not be turned away so easily, or I'm not sure if they can be turned away at all. But my point being that it still can be very different from the history. And same thing with the Utmost Savagery. I think the whole time thing with the chits, and then the chits doing different things, you get the air support and stuff, I think is brilliant. Although as the designer himself, which I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head, there it is, Stephen Cunliffe. There you go. It's a lamp, Meeks. I just think he mentioned that the whole thing of, if you want to really try to do this and do it efficiently, then don't do it like the U.S. did. Don't secure everything and then be like, okay, let's get them mountains. And like, maybe go after the jugular first, go after the mountains first, which, you can try. But each game is different. It just gives such a good feel with such a minimal amount of overhead that I actually used to own D-Day at Peleliu, and I traded it away because this game gives me the same feel with half the time investment and half the rules overhead, probably actually maybe even less than that, or more than that, I should say. It's just so nicely done. And again, it's another solitaire game. I guess quite a few of my games here have been, well, actually 3 of the 4 to start the list have been solitaire. And Frederick obviously is very solitaire friendly because chip pool is always solitaire friendly, in my opinion. But I really do like it. It's the kind of game that I would look for myself in terms of complexity, obviously for myself, but to experience the whole island hopping, taking the islands without getting completely bogged down into details and stuff. So definitely Islands of the Damned, and you get 2 for 1, no less, in this. Is definitely one of the best games, and perhaps one of the best magazine games of the decade too, obviously, at number 7 here. Alright, number 6. Speaking of old Mr. Cunliffe, he comes in at number 6 too, with another Pacific Theater game, Fires of Midway. Now, Fires of Midway seems to be a game where people either love it or they hate it. For me, I love it. Now, I will agree, it's more game than simulation. You know, no one's going to confuse this for John Southard's Carrier. Okay, that's just not going to happen. Or, of course, his follow-up game, which I'm still doing playtesting for. Got to get back on track with that, to be quite honest. But this game, the reason I like it so much is it gives you the feel and the chaos of all those big carrier battles in 1942 in a very playable format. Okay. It doesn't have the details. Granted, you don't have to worry about, lining your planes up on deck and putting them down in the elevators and stuff like that. But the thing I like about it so much is that, in my opinion, from reading and studying the Pacific Theater, the 2 most important elements of the carrier battles in 1942 were basically your searches, finding the enemy, and then figuring out if the information was correct, and then launching planes as quick as you could. Now, the game reflects that by the action cards, which are dealt to each side, and then you get to choose and put them by the carriers. Now, myself, for Solitaire, I designed this. You can look this up on Board Game Geek if you want, and actually I've done some videos. I roll dice to randomly determine which carrier is going to get to launch his planes next. And again, that kind of reflects that, did you get the transmission from the search planes? Even though the U.S. did not have the same reach, was it some PBY that just, was flying along and be like, holy smoke, check this out. So I love the feel of it, and I love that it's so playable, and it still has such a great. I'm trying to think of a different word than feel, but it has such a great experience with it. The other thing I like about it is it has the historical battles, and you can link them all together as a campaign if you want. There are campaign rules in it as well. There's also solitaire rules in it too. And the other thing I like is that you can either do those 4 battles, which of course, Coral Sea, Midway, Eastern Solomons, Santa Cruz, or you can, and I've done this quite a few times, and I love doing this, you can just randomly pick a number of carriers, 3, I usually pick the maximum of 3 for the US, 4 for the Japanese, and have them engage each other, and, see what happens, make adjustments from there, who got sunk, who got damaged, and use the campaign rules. So I love that duality, the fact that you can do the historical, but then you also have the open-ended stuff too. So it plays quick, it's tons of fun. I've played this game almost 40 times now, and I love it. It's so much fun, it's such a good time. So Fires of Midway comes in at number 6 for the decade. Alright, top 5 time. So everybody buckle up. Here we go. Coming in at number 5 is, for me, in my humble opinion, and I have tried a number of these now, this is without a doubt the best block games that I have ever played. And it was hard for me to choose one of these. Well, I take that back. There's 3 of them. There's a trilogy. The trilogy was just completed this year. One of them I kind of right away was like, nah, not this one. But the other 2 were very hard. But I finally settled on number 5, Moscow 41 from Vento Nuovo Games. I really, really like this as an operational Eastern Front game. And again, I played a lot of block games, different companies, Columbia, I have Pax Baltica, I have Triumph and Tragedy for that matter too. Excuse me. But this one I really, really enjoy because I like the command elements. I like how you have to have your headquarters to command units. I like the activation principle, the winding them down. You need to be careful what you're doing and stuff, expending things, which is also kind of a logistics thing too. I also like the logistical rules. You have to wait each turn once you get everything done, or you can go ahead if you have the advantage and initiate a logistical strategic phase and do logistics. But you don't have enough supply to do everything. It's just not possible. So you have to make your decisions and choices, figure out where to go and stuff like that. I like the area movement too. I do own blocks in the east, but with blocks, I think, and this is probably why East Front 2 I also traded away as well. I really think an area format with blocks is much better. That's just my opinion. But this game, the area feels right. It feels natural, for lack of a better way to put it. Making your encirclements and stuff. Now, of course, there has been some discussion and debate, and myself have raised this question too about, not having any units in the areas and still cutting off blocks, and they can't move or do anything. They can't even try to fight their way out of the pocket. That's a little, you could argue that's a little atypical for the Eastern Front, but, because, obviously there were furious attempts by the Russians to break out of pockets. But, despite that, I still like the system, because again, you could argue there are smaller security detachments that are there holding the pockets and stuff, while the big units are off doing their thing. But it's just very accessible, plays very well, it's very tense, it's very tough for both sides. You have to be careful. You really, you are kind of walking a tightrope here. Whether you're the Germans or the Soviets doesn't make any difference at all. And again, Kiev 41 I debated and almost used that because there are a few rule changes in Kiev 41 that I like from Moscow 41, especially the anti-aircraft fire from the Soviet units. But I decided to go with this one because, well, it's Moscow. And also because I do like, and I like the different scenarios too. There's a lot of different scenarios that are available for Moscow 41. I'm kind of hoping that the designer, Emmanuel, so I hope you're watching this maybe, you should make an area Eastern Front game using these rules. Oh, and by the way, too, finishing that blocks in the Pacific would be a great idea, too. Just saying. So my number 5 game of the decade, Moscow 41. Alright, on to number 4. Number 4 has really changed my attitude about tactical games. In my youth, I tried Squad Leader, like almost all of us probably did. I tried Panzer Blitz, Panzer Leader, and I could never get into them. They always just had too many things going on. But then I came across Conflict of Heroes, Awakening the Bear, and more importantly this year came out Conflict of Heroes, Storms of Steel. Now, I do know this game was released originally, I believe back in 2009, but I am keeping it on this list because of the major rule change with the spent dice. That is one of the biggest things. For me, this is the best tactical system because you get all the feel of a tactical game without having thousands of rules, to figure out. You don't have to go through the rule book and, take a look and see, okay, what's the die roll modifier for tall grass, mowed grass, or no grass? Come on, really? Lord have mercy. You don't have to have little satchel charges, figure out, well, wait, what's underneath the satchel charge? Is it a flamethrower? I don't know. It's like, dude, why do I have both? Wait, shouldn't somebody else have the flamethrower? There's none of that here. But there is the same feel. Now, I know you Squad Leader and especially you ASL people are probably going to be, it's going to be like the original Frankenstein, right? Yeah, well, I don't own a windmill, so, haha, for you guys. But anyway, my point being that for someone like me who wants the tactical experience but without a billion rules, this is perfect. I love the spent die roll concept. I love the press your luck concept, because it does kind of, in my opinion, it does reflect, lots of activity, and then it's like, okay, you got to take a breather, you got to pull your guys together, whatever it is that you have to do, and while you're doing that, the enemy may go, oh, look at that, cool, okay, so, really like this. I like the chits that are drawn whenever you score a hit, so you don't know what kind of hit it's going to be, so it's not like other tactical games where, oh, you get a hit, it's damage, you flip it over. No, this could be anything. They could be pinned, they could have other issues, they could have no effect. They could be completely destroyed with this new set of rules. I love it. I just love it. And I love the big tank battles, too. I'm looking forward to, at some point, trying out the solo rules and the firefight generator. But for now, this has been a lot of fun. I've done videos on this, of course. And it definitely comes in as my number 4 game of the last decade. Alright, number 3. Speaking of blocks, number 3, Triumph and Tragedy. European Balance of Power. I love this game despite this gaffe. I'm sorry. I used to be a history teacher, and every time I see this, I get cringe a little bit. Okay. So, just to get that out of the way. But this game, I really, really enjoy. To me, this is the best European theater strategic sandbox game. Now, one of the games I'm sure you noticed on my list that I showed you at the beginning of the video that made the final nominees was Cataclysm. I think Cataclysm is a wonderful game for the whole war. But if you're only talking about the European theater, I think this one is best. And one of the things I really love about this game, and I'm looking forward to the Pacific Theater one that's coming out, it's on the P500 list on GMT, is the diplomacy system. I think the diplomacy system is terrific. I think it's very clever. I think it makes for very interesting geopolitical possibilities. The fact that you shuffle the cards each time raises all kinds of possibilities because, you can't be like, hey, you know what, I got 2 influence in Czechoslovakia. Boom! Take that, Soviet Union and Western allies. Well, you know what, that card may come up next turn and be like, hey, psst, Czechoslovakia. Do you really want to be hanging out with the Germans? Think about this, man. They lost the last war. And that can change. So, I really like that. I've tried to graft this onto other games of diplomacy system by making adjustments. Results, I guess, is the best way to sum it up. Now, I will say that there's all kinds of limitless possibilities. One of the cool things I enjoy about this, too, I should say, you could delay the U.S. You could keep the U.S. out completely. That is possible. I've had that happen in games where the U.S. comes in very, very late, which is almost too late to save the ball game. I also like the big picture concept. So you're thinking about not just your military units and even diplomacy, but you're also thinking about resources. Who are you targeting for your diplomacy? Because I need these resources. Should I just take these resources? Can I be the big bully in this area? Is this a sphere of influence? Is somebody else willing to stick their big nose in my area? So I really enjoy that. The random turn order is nice too, from a solitaire perspective. There are a lot of limitations with this, but of course I did a video that I did a solitaire system that I think works reasonably well. At least it makes things uncertain and gives you an opportunity to make decisions and such. But I really, really enjoy this game a lot. The combat element is a little simplistic, the whole to hit thing. But I mean, Cataclysms is simplistic too. So, yeah. So, I don't know what else to say about that except, well, I'm going to have more to say in the future because I was gonna keep this a secret for a little bit longer, but I'll share. I finally have decided to take the plunge. I'm going off the deep end. I picked up a copy of World in Flames. So we'll see how that goes. I hope well. We shall see. But at any rate, I really enjoy Triumph and Tragedy. I'm looking forward to the Pacific equivalent. I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head. But I did pledge it already on P500. And for me, this game is a lot of fun. It really is a sandbox game. It really, every single time I play it, it plays out differently because of the diplomacy system, because of the choices you have to make with your resources that you have. It's just, to me, it's a lot of fun, and it's a good European theater game, especially for the return. The investment you get, the return is good, and you don't have to invest like ages of your life. You don't have to pretend like you've been like in space for a while or something, like with some other European theater games. So, Triumph and Tragedy, number 3 on my list for the decade. All right, time for the 2 big enchiladas. Who's at the top? Well, number 2 is number 2 because for me personally, it filled a gap. A gap in after the Pacific Theater, especially the carrier battles and strategic, and the Eastern Front. This has always been one of the most interesting campaigns to me. I've spent a lot of time reading about it. I've spent a lot of time searching for games on it. I've discarded most games that I've come across. But finally here, in this last decade, somebody, Joe Miranda, made a game that I feel captures the essence of it without all the detailed rules, without all the little nuances and thousands of counters, hundreds of counters even, and it's just a blast. I played this 8 times last year. That's right, 8. Number 2 is from World at War magazine from 2016, The Battle of Crete. Now this game has been so popular, they actually reprinted it and they jacked up the price from what I understand too. So, yeah. But this game is a solitaire game, okay? And it works really well because the setup, all the Allied troops are face down there. There's a pool of reserves, so you never know what's face down, what's in the reserves when you get started and stuff. I mean, yeah, you can use your aircraft to bomb things and also, have your recon aircraft being like, oh, that's what's here. But that takes time that you don't necessarily have. So, again, a nice trade-off there. You could drop your paratroopers and take your chances, but what if you drop on a space that has like 2 anti-aircraft guns? You will live to regret that decision, okay? I like the fact that the VP count, let me clarify, not the total VP count, because there's been lots of discussion and debate about, victory level and stuff. But I mean, as far as, it's more costly for the Germans to lose their airborne troops, rather than, have the British losing their troops and stuff. I like the optional rules too, where, a die roll, for the attack factor. So like if it's an attack factor of 3, a 3 doesn't cause a hit, it causes the unit to retreat. So I think that actually is quite good. It opens up different options and stuff too. I even like, and a lot of people don't like this rule, the Allied counterattack phase, because like with amphibious assaults, with an airborne assault, standard doctrine is counterattack before they have a chance to get themselves established and get themselves organized. You got to pounce on them now. Do not wait. So I think actually that's good. I like how the Allied table for making decisions. The command, you can pound the command and disorganize them and stuff, so they can't do as many things, but they could launch massive counterattacks in certain sectors and stuff. I like how tough it is to secure the airfields and the ports. It's not easy to do. I like the option of being able to do an amphibious assault, which the Germans did not have to do or did not attempt with this particular thing here. But all those things, the initial deployment, the Allied response table each turn, even how the drops go and everything and stuff, leads to such high replayability, and it is the essence of the campaign without all the extra rule overhead and stuff. Because basically, it boils it down to, you're the Germans, you don't know what's there. You're dropping in. You could launch attacks ahead of time with your fighters and bombers to find out what's there. But again, that costs you time because the enemy's going to have time to organize themselves and organize an evacuation, which you don't want to have happen. And once you get on the ground, once you start to find out what's there, then you try to figure out, okay, where should I reinforce? How should I get this? Holy smoke, this was a disaster. How am I going to get a hold of this port that's way out here in the middle of BFE? I just love the feel of it, and I love the simplicity of it, and I think it's great. I definitely, if you enjoy this campaign, I would definitely get the optional rules and optional counters that come with, if my memory serves, I believe it comes with Operation Gertrude, which was the German code name for the invasion of Turkey, which I think was issue 49, maybe? 48? A couple issues later, basically. I would definitely get that for the air landing group to replace one of the mountain units for the game. But I love this game. I don't know how many times I played it overall, but like I said, last year I played it 8 times alone. And honestly, to start off 2020, I'm about to play it again. Part of it is because, I don't know if this happens to you guys or not, but part of it is I've got kind of into a rut where it's like I can't decide what I want to play next. And I don't feel like learning something new, which is really weird. I usually don't have that problem. But so I was like, well, okay, what do I really enjoy playing? And quite frankly, I kind of narrowed it down to either this or Fires and Midway, because I have such a blast with that, too. So, so I'm going to be dropping in on Crete again, which, again, speaks to its replay ability, because I'm not sure. I'll tell you what, let me just see if I can take a quick look here, if I can get my stupid phone to work. Let me just see if I can take a look, just to tell you guys, and just to share, how many times I have played Crete 1941, because I know I've played it a lot, without a doubt. Let's see. Survey says 24 times I've played this game. total. And it's about to be the 25th. So that's just, yeah. So again, that kind of speaks volumes. So that game is number 2. So after all that, I'm sure you're probably thinking to yourself, what on earth could be number 1? Well, number 1 is a game that is screaming for an updated treatment. You know, there are some games out there that just deserve a deluxe version. There's a lot of games that don't, in my opinion. But this one so does. Because this one is the best of its kind, that is strategic, plays quickly. If things aren't going so well in the first couple of turns, it's so easy to reset. You know, like those old Geico commercials, so simple a caveman can do it, right? And that is the number 1 game of the decade. Number 1. The Barbarossa Campaign from Victory Point Games. This is screaming to have an updated treatment. Mounted map board. Bigger counters. Bigger map board. Bigger everything. Better cards. This game, to me, is my favorite of the past decade. This is the best strategic game on the Eastern Front with minimal overhead and minimal investment. Okay. Now, I'm sure you probably, if you remember, you can look back. No Retreat, Russian Front made my group of finalists, my group of 23. But this one here, Barbarossa Campaign, is even better for a couple of reasons. Okay. First of all, I want to zoom in here a little bit to highlight some things here. The event cards that are involved, the bonus points that you can get when you're drawing the economic counters, it creates a unique narrative every single time. I mean, there was no foregone conclusion that the Germans were going to lose the campaign, especially the way things started. I mean, that's the way it ended up, naturally. But, what if some things had broken their way better? What if the Russians had screwed up even worse than they did to begin with? This game will let you do that. This game will let you see, hey, what if the Germans, after the initial successes, instead of being like, dude, okay, let's switch over to building U-boats, been like, no, man, we got them down. We're stepping on their neck. Let's crack their head open and keep up the tank production, and let's end this thing just in case. Let's do it, man. This kind of stuff you can find out here. It plays easy once you get the hang of it. Especially the Russian counterattack's a little at first. It's kind of unique, but once you get the hang of it, it's terrific. The continuous front, even the combat system, which is diceless. You pull chits. Even the way that's done, by removing certain chits and stuff, shows like the wear and tear on the German army as it advanced, and the logistical, restraints and stuff, and considerations, and the breakdown. Trying to use those dusty roads, okay, in Russia. And the other thing is that you really can truly win as the Germans here. You're going to need some help. You're going to need some breaks. You are going to need, things to fall your way. You're going to need, to use a football analogy, you're going to need that ball to bounce your way. But in the end, it can be done. And again, if after the first couple turns you're like, man, this is not going well at all. This is all, it's just like, well then, hey, start over. No big deal. No problem. All right? And it's very easy and very quick to just reboot. There are scenarios, too, if you want to start with Case Blue or Kursk and stuff. Me, personally, I like to start with the campaign game, and I like to basically run it through Barbarossa and end it there. And if I don't win by the end of Barbarossa, well, that's usually the end. I might take it through the first, through the summer of 42, maybe even to the fall, but that's about it, personally, myself. That's just my own personal opinion. But, again, it's another solitaire game. It is very well designed. One of the designers, Carl Paredes, I'm hoping I pronounced his last name right. Of course, he did No Retreat, as well as this one. But this one, I wish someone else would get the rights to this, especially after the whole thing that happened with Victory Point Games being sold. This needs, this is just screaming for a big board with 5/8 counter size and nice card stock and a mounted map board. It's just screaming for that. This definitely provides the most bang for the buck with the shortest amount of investment and time of any East Front game I've played. And like I said, my collection, I have pushing now about 75 different East Front games. And this is, if this isn't the absolute king, then this is definitely one of the eldest sons heirs to the throne, if not the heir to the throne, to put it that way. So, Barbarossa Campaign, #1 game of the decade for me. Okay, so there you have it. There's my top 10 games of the decade. Don't know what the next decade will bring. We'll see. But last decade was pretty good. There were some great designs that came through. There was a lot of really good games. You know, that first list I put up for you, there was a lot of really good games that were on that list that did not end up making the top 10. You know, I agonized, to be honest. I agonized over a couple. It was very hard at the end to narrow down. I actually had Midway Solitaire as one of the finalists as well, for that last number 10 slot going on there. But eventually it just kind of lost out, so to speak, with it. But even A Spoiled Victory also was one of the last ones standing with that last cut, so to speak. Okay, so there's my top 10 games of the decade. I'm hoping, again, to share Ostcreed with you when it shows up on my doorstep, hopefully pretty quick. I'm also looking forward to the updated Nimitz, Fleet Commander Nimitz kit, and the Yamamoto AI expansion. I'm having hopes for that because Fleet Commander Nimitz is definitely a game with tons of potential, but whew, the execution was not so hot, let's just put it that way. Alright, so here's hoping to another good 10 years of wargaming coming down the road. So, this is Tim Korchner from Bare Bones Wargaming saying thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time, most likely with Ostcreed, which comes out January the 17th of this year. Thanks for watching. See you next time.